In 1914, Professor Peckley and his student Billy were researching an ancient site in Egypt. While reading the inscriptions on the walls, Professor Peckley deciphered a prophecy. An ancient force, called evil, appears every 5,000 years to destroy all planets with life. The only way to stop it is by using an ancient weapon that includes 4 natural elements: water, fire, earth, air, and the 5th element, a perfect being. A priest, upon hearing about Peckley's discoveries, became concerned that he knew too much and plotted to poison him by adding poison to the water. However, when offered the water, Professor Peckley refused and asked Billy to fetch wine instead. Suddenly, a spaceship landed right on the pyramid, and the giant aliens, called Mondoshawans, appeared. The priest recognized them because he had kept their relics. The Mondoshawans came to retrieve the elemental stones and the sarcophagus containing the 5th element because a war was imminent and Earth was no longer safe. One Mondoshawan used a key to open a secret door in the pyramid. Overwhelmed by the events unfolding, Professor Peckley fainted. The Mondoshawans took the 4 elemental stones along with the sarcophagus containing the 5th element, causing the priest to worry that Earth would no longer be protected. At that moment, Billy found a gun and fired at them, triggering the security system. The walls began to close in, trapping one of them, who handed the key to the priest. Before dying, this Mondoshawan asked the priest to continue passing on the knowledge to future generations, waiting until their return. The priest ran after the ship to return the key, but they had already moved far away from Earth. 300 years later, the prophecy came true as evil began to approach Earth. President Lindbergh convened his advisors to discuss the situation and decided to send a military spacecraft to confront it. Meanwhile, the successor priest, Vito Cornelius, came to see President Lindbergh to warn him that attacking evil with weapons would only make things worse. He tried to explain the prophecy about the 5th element, but the president dismissed the advice and ordered the military to fire. However, no matter how many missiles they fired, evil absorbed them all without being harmed. Then, evil used its power to make all the soldiers start bleeding and killed them very quickly. The Mondoshawans began their journey to Earth too, hoping to use a super weapon to stop evil. However, they were unexpectedly attacked by a group of rebellious aliens, called Mangalores, who destroyed their spaceship and stole the box containing the elemental stones. The Mangalores then contacted Zorg, a human working for evil, who had hired the Mangalores to retrieve the stones. The two sides arranged to meet later to exchange the stones for money. Meanwhile, in the city, former soldier Corbin said goodbye to his cat before leaving his apartment, but was blocked by a thief who threatened him with a special weapon. Corbin distracted him by saying he had forgotten to load the weapon. When the thief looked down at the button, Corbin drew his gun and frightened him into running away. Corbin then got into a taxi and started his shift. Sometime later, a group of soldiers found a hand among the wreckage of the Mondoshawan spaceship, and government scientists placed it into a special machine capable of regenerating DNA. They explained that the Mondoshawan was not much different from humans. The machine, resembling a laser printer, began to recreate the DNA chain and produced a beautiful woman. The scientists and soldiers couldn't take their eyes off her, calling her perfect. After the machine gave her a set of clothes, it tried to take a photo of her, but the noise caused her to wake up. She immediately panicked, speaking in an unfamiliar language and trying unsuccessfully to open the chamber. However, when a general approached and provoked her, the woman became enraged, punched through the glass and knocked the general unconscious. As the alarm sounded, she broke through the wall to escape. She ran into the ventilation system and followed it until she reached the top of the building, but was suddenly surrounded by the police. With no other choice, she decided to jump and landed right into Corbin's taxi. Corbin was immediately captivated by her beauty and tried to communicate, but he couldn't understand her. At that moment, the police surrounded his car. The woman saw a sign that said help. At first, Corbin refused because he didn't want to lose his job. But when he saw her crying, he finally agreed to help. Corbin accelerated, and a chase ensued as their car flew through the city, which Corbin was very familiar with. He drove through sharp turns, causing one police car to crash into a delivery truck. When the two remaining police cars opened fire, Corbin drove into a foggy area to escape the radar. Unfortunately, the woman was not well and she said the word priest before passing out. Corbin found a priest in the area and went to Vito's apartment. Vito saw the mark on her hand and immediately recognized her as the 5th element. Vito and his assistant David went to find the ceremonial outfit while Corbin tried to wake her up with a gentle kiss. However, she took his gun and demanded that he step back. Corbin apologized and introduced himself with his name tag. In return, he learned her name was too long, so they decided to call her Leelu. Then, Vito and David returned to give the key to the sarcophagus to Leelu, while sending Corbin outside for a few hours. Leelu ate a lot and used Vito's computer to update herself on 5,000 years of history, learn the local language, and even picked up some martial arts moves. Vito could understand Leelu's language and knew that she knew the location of the elemental stones. Meanwhile, the Mangalores met with Zorg, who noticed a human leading their group and called him out. This person began to transform, revealing himself as the Mangalores' leader, Eknot. who had disguised himself as a human to hide within the president's army. Anat handed the box to Zorg and demanded payment. Zorg gave them advanced technology and weapons, using mannequins to demonstrate the capabilities of these weapons, claiming they could destroy anything. The Mangalores happily accepted the weapons, but when Zorg opened the box, he found it empty. Furious, Zorg wanted to cancel the deal, but Anat pointed out that they had taken the exact box Zorg had requested, and what was inside was not their concern. Zorg pretended to overlook the matter and left, knowing what would happen next. The Mangalores pressed a secondary button on the weapon, unaware that it triggered a bomb, which immediately exploded and destroyed them. Back with Vito, he learned from Leelu that the Mondoshawans had entrusted the stones to someone they trusted, and Leelu would contact that person through a map on the computer. Leelu showed them that the person was a famous singer who would perform on a luxury cruise ship at Floston Paradise. Suddenly there was a knock on the door and Vito opened it to find Zorg's henchmen. They dragged him outside to meet their boss. Zorg demanded to know the location of the stones. When Vito refused to reveal it, Zorg said his mission was also to protect life, but he believed life was the inevitable result of destruction. Chaos is the driving force behind human progress. While demonstrating his devices, Zorg accidentally choked on a cherry pit. No matter how many buttons he pressed, all his devices were useless in this situation. Vito took the opportunity to point out that power is useless if Zorg could still be killed by something as small as that, then patted his back to help dislodge the cherry pit. Zorg acknowledged this act of kindness and let Vito go. Later, one of Zorg's henchmen used a bug to eavesdrop on the president's meeting and discovered that the singer had the stones. Lindbergh ordered his people to hire the best for the job, and that person was Corbin. Before Zorg could learn more, Lindbergh discovered the bug and destroyed it. Meanwhile, Corbin was having dinner with food from a flying street vendor. Suddenly, he received a message saying he had been fired, then another call from his mother asking why he hadn't told her that he had won the Gemini competition. Corbin was confused because he hadn't entered any competition, until a second message arrived with 2 tickets to Floston Paradise as the prize. His confusion ended when 3 soldiers came to meet him and explained that the government had rigged the competition so Corbin could go undercover and retrieve the stones from the singer. Feeling manipulated, Corbin tried to refuse the offer, but was interrupted by another group. It was Vito and Leelu, and Corbin became panicked. Corbin hid the soldiers in the refrigerator before allowing the others in. Vito quickly drew his gun and demanded that Corbin hand over the tickets to retrieve the stones. Suddenly, the alarm in the apartment went off, signaling a police inspection. Corbin hid Leelu in the sink and Vito in a makeshift bed, then leaned against the wall while the police carried out their inspection. He pretended not to be Corbin, and the police checked another apartment, where a neighbor insulted them and inadvertently made them think he was Corbin. The police immediately arrested him and took him out in a sack. On the way, Mangalore blocked the road and killed several policemen to steal the sack containing the body. It turned out that Aknot survived Zorg's explosion and wanted revenge, so he would steal the stones first. When things calmed down, Corbin let Leelu and Vito out of hiding, but as he turned his back, Vito knocked him unconscious and took the tickets. When Corbin woke up, Vito and Leelu had already left. He opened the fridge and took the mission from the soldiers, agreeing to cooperate. Soon after, at the airport, David used a fake passport to pretend to be Corbin, with Leelu posing as his wife. However, just as they were about to check in, Corbin arrived and pretended that David was his assistant to avoid suspicion. Corbin and Leelu were allowed to board the spaceship, while David ran to meet Vito, who handed him the key and told him to prepare the temple, while he would pursue Leelu. Shortly after, 2 Mangalores disguised as humans tried to impersonate Corbin and Leelu, but the staff checked their computers and discovered the truth, so they were escorted out. Then, Zorg's henchmen also tried to impersonate Corbin, but the staff knew the real Corbin had boarded the ship, so they activated security measures. The man immediately ran off and used a payphone to call Zorg, who was frustrated by the failure and blew up the phone to kill him. The explosion occurred at the same time the spaceship took off, allowing Vito to sneak onto the ship without being detected. Leelu went to their cabin, but Corbin was pulled away by a flight attendant and introduced to Ruby, a famous show host. Ruby wanted the contest winner to appear on his show and took Corbin on a tour while greeting his fans. However, Corbin only answered Ruby's questions with 1 or 2 words. Frustrated, Ruby scolded him for not cooperating, and Corbin shoved him against the wall, threatening him to leave. Afterward, Corbin joined Leelu in their cabin and discovered she had finally learned a bit of English. However, they didn't get much chance to talk as the flight attendants put them to sleep for the duration of the flight. Meanwhile, Zorg received a call from Evil, who reminded him to retrieve the stone soon or face consequences. With just its voice, Evil caused Zorg's head to bleed as a warning. Several hours later, the spaceship finally arrived at the planet Floston. While the passengers disembarked, technicians found Vito hiding in the ventilation system. Corbin checked their hotel room while Leelu hid in the hallway to monitor Diva, the singer arriving at the hotel. Diva sensed Leelu's presence nearby and sent her assistant to inform her they could meet after the concert. Ruby then dragged Corbin to watch Diva's performance, whose singing moved many to tears. Meanwhile, Zorg also arrived at the hotel. The Mangalores broke into Diva's room, searching for the stones. Leelu, still hiding nearby, noticed them and rushed into Diva's room, engaging the Mangalores in combat using martial arts she had learned from Vito's computer. One by one, the Mangalores fell as Leelu demonstrated her perfect abilities as the fifth element. Afterward, Leelu retrieved the box the Mangalores had tried to steal. However, as she was about to leave, she found Zorg blocking her path. Frightened by his high-tech gun, Leelu threw the box at him and jumped into the ventilation system to escape. Zorg fired into the ventilation system and heard Leelu injured, assuming she was about to die. After setting a bomb to detonate in 20 minutes, Zorg left. Unfortunately, more Mangalores surrounded the hotel and began taking hostages, interrupting the concert when they shot Diva, causing the crowd to flee in panic. Diva fell onto the stage, and Corbin rushed to help, pulling her to safety behind the seats. With her last breath, Diva asked Corbin to save humanity and said the stones were hidden inside her body. Meanwhile, Zorg opened the box and found it empty, realizing he would have to return to the hotel. Suddenly, a Mangalore attacked Corbin, but he quickly subdued it and instructed Ruby to keep the gun aimed at the creature. Corbin then reached into Diva's wound, retrieved the stones, wrapped them in his coat, and handed them to Ruby, asking him to protect them at all costs. Soon, more Mangalores entered the theater, but Corbin used his gun to fight back. After Corbin eliminated a group of Mangalores, they began firing stronger rockets, forcing him to take cover behind a bar. Ruby escaped outside and went up to one of the balconies. Hearing their threats, Corbin had no choice but to step out with his hands raised. At that moment, he noticed Ruby on the balcony and signaled for him to move. Corbin jumped onto a plank, knocking a Mangalore away and trapping its head against the balcony. Ruby screamed upon seeing the scene. The panicked Mangalore fired wildly, accidentally hitting its own teammates. Corbin finally got the chance to grab another gun and take out the remaining enemy. However, more Mangalores rushed in, forcing Corbin to fire a barrage of bullets that narrowly missed Ruby, causing him to fall. Corbin then threw a grenade through the opening he had created. Ruby and Corbin hid under a table as the explosion killed all the approaching Mangalores. When the situation calmed, Corbin and Ruby rushed to the control room and discovered another group of Mangalores taking hostages, including Vito. A new fight broke out, and humans seemed to gain the upper hand, prompting Anot to demand someone come to negotiate with him. Corbin volunteered, and upon seeing Anot, he shot him in the head. Corbin then checked the security footage and saw Leelu's hand dangling from the ventilation system, prompting him to rush to save her. Vito and Ruby followed and discovered the bomb, triggering an alarm that forced the hotel to evacuate. Corbin's group heads out to the docks while Zorg returns, but they only see each other briefly. Corbin's team stole Zorg's ship to escape. Zorg returned to the room and deactivated the bomb, only to discover a surviving Mangalore, whose death activated a second bomb. The bomb detonated, killing Zorg. Luckily, Corbin's group escaped before the explosion, but evil sensed this and began moving faster toward Earth. Lindbergh's scientists detected it and called Corbin, warning him they had only 2 hours to save the world. During the journey, Leelu woke up and continued researching human history, only to discover humanity's wars and brutality. Eventually, their group arrived in Egypt, where David led them to the temple. Leelu, still injured, passed out from her wounds before she could explain what to do. Corbin's group realized that the symbols on the stones matched the stone pillars, so they placed each stone in its correct position, but nothing happened. At that moment, David accidentally sighed on the air stone, activating it, revealing that each stone required its corresponding element. They used sweat for the water stone, threw dirt on the earth stone, and lit a match for the fire stone. When all the stones lit up and were ready, Corbin hurried to Leelu and woke her, only to hear her say she didn't want to save humanity because of its destructive nature. Corbin told her that some things, like love, are worth saving. When Leelu said she never knew what love was, Corbin kissed her. At that moment, the fifth element finally awakened, and together with the stones, it activated the ultimate weapon, striking evil as it approached and destroying it completely. A few days later, government scientists placed Corbin and Leelu in a DNA chamber to heal their wounds. Lindbergh arrived to thank them for their efforts, but a scientist asked him to wait. It turned out the couple inside had woken up and were passionately embracing right in the sealed chamber. You just watched a summary of the movie The Fifth Element. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss exciting videos like this one. Thank you for watching.